Hi, how you doing? Well, it's another beautiful day as always, and today I want to talk about your awakening. Now, I know I've talked about various things that have involved blocking your awakening, like your attachments and the illusions that you are under, but today I'd like to talk about how and why awakening happens and what you can do to sort of give it a helping hand. Anyway, so why aren't you awakened? Why haven't you awakened yet? You are on a spiritual journey, okay, or a spiritual path to awakening. Let's hope, right? And the reason that you can't awaken is because you're somebody, or you think you're somebody. Now, as you think you're somebody, which is what you think you are, and that goes back in the past. Like, for instance, when you were a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, you were awakened then because you were in touch with God. Okay? That's really what awakening is about, unless you don't believe in God, in which case it's about raising your consciousness. Anyway, so that's what's going on. You aren't in touch with God. And the reason you aren't in touch with God is because you think you're a somebody. Crazy, isn't it? Now, the reason you think you're a somebody is because that is what you have been taught to be. When you are growing up, you get to the age of, 12, 13, 14, something like that. And somebody says, who do you want to be? Or what do you want to be? Okay? Maybe they said that when you were 4 or 5. It's hard to say. And you said, I want to be a fireman or a cowboy or whatever you said. But at some point, you get to be 14 or 15 or so, and they say, who do you want to be? What do you want to be? And then you say, oh, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a lawyer or a policeman. Okay? Which is all fine. And so you identify with that. And you say to yourself, I am going to be a doctor. And then you go through high school and you become what you become. Either you get great grades in high school and you have great grades in college and then you become a doctor, or you don't and then you don't. That's the way it is. But either way, you become a somebody because that's what you do. Okay? And as a somebody, you try to get stuff. Okay? Like, for instance, cars, houses, wives, kids. All these things you make into a part of you because you want to be bigger. Well, it's not you, actually. It's your ego that wants you to be bigger. So it can be bigger, right? And so it helps you to collect things. And that's what you think your life's about. You go around trying to get a good job so you can make a lot of money, so you can buy a good house, so you can attract a good woman, and so on and so forth. And all this stuff's great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, okay? But as long as you believe that you are a somebody, then you cannot progress on the spiritual path. So, that is the way it is. Now, in order to not be a somebody, one must accept. I know that's crazy, isn't it? Acceptance is everywhere and everything, isn't it? Yes, it is. Anyway, now, in being a somebody, you have stuff, okay? Not just on the outside. You've got, obviously, furniture and houses and cars and jewelry and stuff like that, okay? And I have jewelry. See my Buddha bracelet? You can see it from there. Anyway, the point is, all this stuff becomes a part of you. But also, on the inside, you also have stuff. Like what you identify as, okay? For instance, if you're a man, then you identify as a man. You think you're a man. You think you're manly. Or you try to be manly. If you're a woman, you identify as a woman and you try to be womanly. That's just the way it is. Try to be feminine or masculine, whatever it is. That's like the first layer, okay? And on top of that, whatever kind of job you have, you identify with that. And that goes on to the next layer. And then whatever you like to do for fun, okay? Like, let's say you like snowboarding or skiing or riding a bike down a mountain, or maybe you like to go surfing, or whatever it is, that's another layer of identification that goes on top of that, okay? And all these layers of identification are turning you into a somebody. That's just the way it is, okay? And let's say you like a certain type of sex, and so that's another layer that you identify with, and so on and so forth. Maybe you are a pervert, which we all are, by the way, because we all like things a little bit different, because we're all individuals. We all have different kind of ideas about what turns us on, okay? So that's all part of identifying who you are, okay? And last of all is food. You love food, right? You love certain types of food, and you put those on top of that. And you have this whole bunch of layers, okay, that tells you who you are, okay? And there's nothing wrong with any of that. That's just the way it is, okay? And so, therefore, these layers are there to help you know who you are. And that's what they're for, okay? And there's other layers I haven't even mentioned that are undoubtedly in there, and we'll go into that at another time. But generally speaking, those are the layers I can think of at this moment, okay? So now all this identification has happened to tell you that you are a somebody. When your parents were raising you, they said, our son's going to be a somebody. Right? That's what they said. And, which is fine, okay? And so you go out and try to be a somebody, okay? And that may be that you become a doctor, or maybe you become an actor, and you try to go to Hollywood and become a famous actor, or maybe you try to be famous in other ways, or maybe you do other things, okay? Or maybe you can't be an actor, you can't be a doctor, you can't be anything else, and you think, I'm a loser, which is completely bullshit. You're not a loser. No matter what you failed at, which we've all failed at things. I know I have failed at many, many things in my life, okay? You're not a loser. Now, so this is what identification is all about, okay? All these layers turn you into somebody, okay? Whether it's a good somebody, like, for instance, Brad Pitt, that's a good somebody to be, isn't it? Of course it is. Or, for instance, maybe you're a doctor who saves a lot of people, and that's a good somebody to be. Or maybe you are a member of an ocean cleanup crew, and you go out and clean up the ocean. Whatever somebody you are, okay, which that's wonderful to be as somebody, or even whatever it is you decide to be, okay, it's not going to get you into spiritual enlightenment. It's just not. The doorway to spiritual enlightenment is narrow, and you are full. You're full up, okay? You're full up with all these things, which are your somebodyness. In order to get through the doorway of spiritual enlightenment, okay, or awakening, you need to get rid of all these things. And not get rid of them as in sell your house and sell your cars and sell your stock certificates and so on and so forth. But to stop making them a part of who you think you are. Now, in the old days, the masters of spiritual enlightenment would strip away these layers from their pupils. They would strip them away by being very harsh and so on and so forth. Okay? And so that's basically how it was. Okay? And nowadays, there are not many gurus left. And if there were, you probably wouldn't recognize them. Anyway, okay? So this kind of has to happen on its own. And so, how do we strip away these layers? Well, we need to accept. There it is again, accepting. So powerful, so many places. Now, in order to not be somebody, you have to become a nobody. That's not somebody who's a failure and never went anywhere in life and is still living in the same hometown that they were living and all that crap. That doesn't really matter. This is someone who is not a somebody. Okay? I am not a somebody. I'm a nobody. And as such, I have access to God. Okay? And that's just the way it is. And in order to have access to God, you have to strip away your somebodyness. Okay? And I know that's not an easy thing to do. Okay? Because letting go is very hard. Okay? And, it's a very difficult thing to do because that's just the way it is. Okay? We have spent so many years, okay, becoming somebody. Okay? Whether it was from the time we were 5 years old and we realized we wanted to do science, or 10 years old and we realized we wanted to be a doctor, or whatever age you decided to be something, okay? That's how long it's been since you wanted to be somebody. And you worked toward that. You worked very hard to be that somebody, okay? Which is fine. I'm not saying it's wrong to work toward being somebody. It is what it is. So, as you continued on to be this somebody, and as you continued collecting all of these things inside and out, okay, eventually you started feeling bad. Yes, that's what happens, okay? Even though you have all these things, and even though you tried to fill the hole that's within yourself, you couldn't fill it. No matter how many drugs you took, or how much gambling you did, you couldn't fill the hole. And even if you lost everything, your house, your car, your wife, your kids, from gambling or from some other problem, maybe you had an addiction, it just didn't matter, because that's what happens. Because you were trying to fill a hole that really can only be filled by one thing, and that's God. Okay? And so as you get older and time goes on, you feel more and more unhappy. Okay? Yeah, when you were 20 and you were trying to become a doctor and you were going to college and you were learning all sorts of stuff, you weren't unhappy then. And as you got to be a doctor and you became more and more comfortable with being a doctor or being a policeman or being whatever it is you became, okay, you weren't unhappy then, because, that was all sort of an adventure that you were on, okay? But then at some point, the unhappiness started setting in. And that unhappiness is because you have no contact with God. Now, even if you went to church, and even if you were a believer in God and Jesus and all that, or maybe you went to temple, or maybe you went to the mosque, it didn't make any difference, because that unhappiness was from one thing: lack of connection to God. I've said before that when we love someone, we're really getting that love from God. Okay? I know that's hard to really understand or even see how it is, but that's what it is. Okay? You have a key, and that key opens the door to love, or God, to someone else. And when you meet that someone else, that person has the key to your door. Okay? And so you open their door, and they open your door, and the love comes out, and you say, I have fallen in love, which is a great, fantastic thing. Okay? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with falling in love. Falling in love is great. But it's not going to make you unhappy. Okay? Because eventually the unhappiness, okay, that is in you, okay, is going to creep out. And you're going to start saying, well, this person's not as good as I thought they were. Or this person's habits are nasty. I hate the way they brush your teeth, or I hate the way they eat, or whatever it is. You find fault with the person that you fell in love with. And That's the way it is. Right? Anyway, so, and that is how it all happens. And eventually you say, I don't love you anymore. And I say, I don't love you anymore. Because this unhappiness that's creeping into your life cannot be stopped by the love you get from another person. Even though it's the love of God, okay, it's still coming from another person. It's not as powerful as God's love is when it comes direct to you. Okay? And even if you have your whole family around you, okay, and they all love you so much, and you love them so much, and all that love is flowing through the relationships, you're still going to be unhappy. Why? Because you don't have direct contact with God. And I'm not trying to say that your life's bad or anything else. I'm not trying to make any judgments on your life. Your life is your life, and I'm not trying to tell you what's wrong with it or good with it or anything else. What I am trying to say is that there's no way to be happy except awakening. Because no matter what you do to try and fill that hole that God left, it's not going to work. Riches, power, fame doesn't do it. Okay? And that's just the way it is. Now, so therefore you feel unhappy and you want to know how to make yourself feel better. You want to know how to make this pain go away. The pain of unhappiness. And unhappiness takes many forms, and I'm sure that it's not good. But anyway, the point is you need to get happy. Right? And there's only one way to get that way, and that is through acceptance. Okay? Now, I get it. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to accept what is. It's hard to accept that maybe you're not getting what you need from everyone. Okay? But that's just the way it is. As much as you love your mom and your dad and your friends and people around you, it's not enough, is it? And so you look at yourself, you say, well, I'm not enough. I'm the problem. I'm the one who's not enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have enoughness in me. Okay? Like as in the old Alice in Wonderland where the Hatter says to Alice, you have a lot of muchness. Or maybe it's the worm guy. Anyway, the point is, you think you're not enough. You think you don't have enoughness. You don't have any muchness. Because who else can you blame? You can't blame your parents. They love you. You can't blame your friends. They love you. You can't blame your wife. They love you. So you wind up blaming yourself. Well, you do wind up blaming your wife, and then you get a divorce, and then you feel really crappy about that. Okay? And I'm not trying to make you feel bad about your life. Okay? I'm trying to help you see what is. And what is that you are a soul. You're not a person. You're not a somebody. You are a soul. As long as you think that you are a somebody, you're going to be stuck. And that stuckness is not a good place to be. So, in order to get past that stuckness, okay, we need to accept. I know it's a hard thing to do, to accept, okay, but that's the way it is. Now, what is it you need to accept? Your own isness. That's what. And part of that isness is the fact that you are not a soul. Now, you are not a person, sorry. You're a soul, okay? As long as you hang on to that personhood, okay? Which you do. You hang on to it, and you hang on to your somebodyness, too. Right? You hang on to them nice and tight. Right? That's what you do in order to make yourself feel whatever. Okay? Competent. I am a competent doctor. I save people. I do things for the world. Okay? Whatever it is. Okay? And holding on to these things like your somebodyness, okay, isn't helping because it's not going to do the trick. That's why you gamble. That's why you take drugs. That's why you smoke cigarettes. That's why you're unhappy. Right? Right. It's just the way it is. And I don't want anyone to feel unhappy. Believe me, that's not what I want. But I do want you to awaken, because that is the way to make this world a better place, is more people awakening. What happens is you're in a dream. You're dreaming the whole thing. Okay? Your life, your wife, your kids, your house, your cars, it's all a dream. The dream of unconsciousness. Okay? And in order for you to awaken from that dream, you have to accept your own isness. Okay? And maybe that means you have to accept that you're ugly. Maybe it means you have to accept that you're old. Maybe that means that you have to accept that you're not good at pool. Or maybe it means that you're not good at poker. Or maybe it means that you're not good at other things. Okay? Whatever it is that you are believing you're good at, okay? Which maybe you are. I'm not saying you're not good at things. Of course you are. Everyone has their talent. Okay? But regardless of that, you feel it. You feel like you're unhappy. You feel like you're not good enough. You feel like you're incomplete. And so in order to be complete, you grab onto things. You hold on to things. Okay? And it doesn't work. Okay? I mean, I'm not trying to say that you're doing wrong things or anything. I'm sure you're doing the right thing. You wouldn't even be listening to this if you were not on the path, or if you were not trying to make yourself better. Okay? Because otherwise, why would you listen to this? People who don't think they have any problems don't listen to videos about how to fix the problems. Okay? So, your awakening is awaiting you, and your awakening is inevitable. Once you are born into this world, you are going to awaken, okay? Once you have gone beyond the stage of childhood and you're into your somebodyness, you are going to awaken. The question is when? Are you going to awaken after 30 years of suffering? Or 40? Or 50? Or 60? Or 80? I mean, I don't know. But let's try and get it done now. Let's try and get it done before all those years of suffering set in. Okay? You do not know the incredible bliss I feel. You do not know the incredible love I get from God every day. I don't need anything from anyone because I have everything I need, which is love. And that love is yours too. Okay? It's inside of you. It's within you. And it's available to you. The bliss, the love, the peace, the joy. It's all there waiting for you inside of your doorway. Okay? And that doorway is the door to the formless dimension. The door to God. Because that's where God is. And in order to get there, you have to give up what you think you are. You have to give up your identity. We identify with being things. That's what we do. I know I've talked about a lot about letting go, and everyone says letting go is so hard. And it is. But as long as you think you're somebody, as long as you're trying to be someone, okay? It's not going to happen, okay? You have to let go of your somebodyness. You have to let go of being a doctor. Let go of being a priest. Let go of being an actor. Let go of being a policeman. Because all of these things are just roles that we play. And we all have all these roles that we play. father, mother, daughter, son, uncles, aunts. They're all roles that we play. And we get caught in these roles. Policeman, doctor, actor. And we are caught in the role of what we identify with. That's the way it is. And when your son moves away and you're no longer able to mother, then what are you left with? Except unhappiness because you think you're a mother. Well, you're not a mother. You're a soul. Okay? And as long as you think you're a mother or a doctor or a policeman or an actor, you will not be able to be happy. Because the time comes, everybody has the time comes, when being a mother or an actor or a daughter or whatever just doesn't work anymore. Let's say you're an actor, okay? And you go to Hollywood and you get some fame, but then time goes by and eventually you don't get the calls anymore, and then pretty soon you're not working, then you go to commercials or television shows, or eventually nobody wants you. And now you're not an actor anymore because you cannot act. So therefore that role is not there for you anymore. It's not helping you, but you still think you're an actor because that's what you were. And you hang on to that. You hang on to being an actor because I am an actor. But it's not you. Okay? And you're not a mother either, or a father, or a policeman, or a doctor, or a nurse. Because that's not who you are. You are a soul. Strip away all these roles. Strip away all this somebodyness that you think you are. Strip away the houses, the cars, the jewelry. I admit I wear jewelry. This is a Buddhist prayer bracelet. And this is a Buddha head bracelet. But I wear these things to remind me who I am. Because sometimes I forget, just like everyone. I'm not perfect. No one is. And sometimes the awakening just falls away. And then I look at my bracelet and I remember. Okay? That's part of being on the journey. Okay? Anybody who has awakened can tell you that that happens occasionally. Not really my guru, but one of the people that I really listened to when I was trying to awaken was Ram Dass. And he always carried a set of malas, beads. And whenever he forgot that he was awakened, the beads would remind him. And so with me, it's bracelets, because I don't like stuff around my neck. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. None of that stuff matters. What matters is you accepting who you are. Accepting that you are a soul. What is a soul? A soul is God's spirit. The spirit of God. Okay? That is within you. When I look at you, I see God's spirit. I do not see your body. Well, of course, I see your body, but I do not pay attention to your body. I do not pay attention to the job you're doing. I see God's spirit. Okay? And once you see God's spirit, you have to love that spirit, because God is love, and therefore the spirit of God is love too. And that soul is love. Do you not have love? Are you needing to have some love? Do you want to find a man or a woman? It's in you. It's inside of yourself, because, not yourself actually, but it's inside of who you really are. It's in your soul. And that doorway is the doorway into your soul, which leads through to God. Okay? Well, clock on the wall is telling me it's time I have to go. And though I don't want to, I kind of have to, because that's the way it is. Anyway, try to accept what is. Try to realize that whatever role you're playing, whatever it is, maybe it's what you do for money, maybe it's what you do for your family, maybe it's something else. It's just not you. You've identified with this role for your entire life, and you need to unidentify with it. You need to let it go, because that is what is important in life. It's not important to be a doctor. It's not important to be an actor. It's not important to be a philosopher. It's not important to be a nurse. It's not important to do anything except to be a soul. I know that's hard to hear because you think it is important, because your somebodyness is rooted in that importance, right? But unfortunately, that doesn't make any difference in your own life, because happiness, which is very fleeting and difficult to attain, is not something you can attain. It comes when you accept who you are. It comes when you accept that you are not a person, that you are God's light, that God's light shines through you. All right. It's been my pleasure to talk to you about stuff today. And I hope that you can feel what I'm trying to say and accept who you are. And let go of these roles that you're playing, because that's all you're doing. You're playing a role. All right. Have a great day and a great life. I love you all.